December 3rd, 1999. A Delhi courtroom. The trial had lasted for years. Dozens of witnesses, forensic experts, hundreds of pages of evidence. Finally, it was time for the verdict. As the judge began reading, it seemed obvious where the case was heading. A young law student had spent more than a year reporting harassment. The accused had seen near her house on the very day she was murdered. He was found with the fresh fracture in his hand that same evening, one he never properly explained. Piece by piece, the evidence seemed to fit. The courtroom waited. The victim's family waited. Everyone thought they knew what was coming. And then, acquitted. Not because the judge believed the accused was innocent. In fact, the judgment suggested the suspicion against him was strong. But suspicion isn't enough to convict someone. The judge believed the investigation had left behind something the law could not ignore. Reasonable doubt. One decision, one word, and a man walked free. Most murder cases end there. This one didn't. Because 7 years later, another court reopened the same case. The witness hadn't changed. The evidence hadn't changed. The crime hadn't changed. Yet this time, the court reached the exact opposite conclusion. One murder, one case filed, the same evidence. So how can two courts look at the same facts and see two completely different truths? The Priyadarshini Mattoo case. To understand how that became possible, we have to go back to where it all began. To understand why 3 different courts reached 3 different conclusions, we have to go back to a law college in Delhi. The early 1990s, Priyadarshini Mattoo was a final year law student at Delhi University's campus law center. Like thousands of others, her life revolved around lectures, exams, and the future she was working toward. Then, someone refused to let her live that ordinary life. Santosh Kumar Singh had already graduated, yet he kept returning to campus again and again, always on the same black bullet motorcycle. Not because he had classes, because of one person, Priyadarshini. What began as unwanted attention soon became harassment. In February 1995, according to court records, Santosh followed her car through Delhi and tried to stop her. The police intervened. He signed a written undertaking. He promised he would never harass her again. He broke that promise. Months later, he followed her to her home in Vasant. He allegedly tried to force open her car door. Again, the police intervened. Again, he signed another undertaking. Again, nothing changed. By November 1995, the situation had become impossible to ignore. Inside the law college itself, court records state that Santosh grabbed Priyadarshini by the arm. This time an FIR was registered under section 354 of the IPC. He was arrested. Later he was released on bail. 3 complaints, 3 promises, 3 chances to stop. He ignored every one of them. By then, Priyadarshini and her father feared things were getting out of control. They approached the commissioner of police. A personal security officer was assigned to protect her, even while attending college. Think about that. A law student needed police protection just to go to class. But the harassment didn't stop. Instead, Santosh filed a complaint with the university accusing Priyadarshini of being enrolled in 2 courses at the same time. An inquiry began. Her examination results were withheld while it was investigated. By January 1996, she was trying to complete her law degree while living under police protection, and the man who had promised twice to live alone still hadn't. Then, on the morning of 23rd Jan 1996, the one person assigned to protect her arrived late. 23rd Jan 1996. It was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday, but the day began with something that shouldn't have happened. Priyadarshini's personal security officer never arrived. She couldn't wait forever, so she left without him. After dropping her parents at this Hazari Courts, she drove to the campus law center. When a security officer finally reached the university, he noticed someone already waiting. Santosh Kumar Singh, standing beside his black bullet motorcycle. Helmet in hand, he had graduated months earlier. He had no reason to be there, yet he was. Inside the classroom, everything seemed normal. Lectures, friends, routine paperwork for the next semester. Nobody then knew one of those students would be dead before sunset. After class, Priyadarshini returned home to Vasant. Before her security officer left, she gave him one simple instruction: come back at 5:30. Neither of them knew those would become some of the most important words in the entire case. By late afternoon, the house was quiet. The domestic help had stepped out. Her parents were away. For the first time that day, Priyadarshini was completely alone. Around the same time, 3 different people would later describe seeing the same man near her home. A neighbor, a colony security supervisor, a lawyer who lived nearby. Different people, different moments, the same man, Santosh Kumar Singh, still carrying his helmet. At exactly 5:30 p.m., Head Constable Rajendra Singh returned. He rang the bell. No answer. He knocked again. Still nothing. One of the doors was slightly open. Something felt wrong. He stepped inside. The house was silent. As he entered the bedroom, he found Priyadarshini's body beneath the double bed. An electric heater cord was wrapped tightly around her neck. Within minutes, the police were called. The post-mortem would reveal just how violent the attack had been. 19 separate injuries, 3 broken ribs. This hadn't been a quick assault. She had fought back. Before investigators left the bedroom, one detail caught their attention. Tiny fragments of broken plastic scattered across the floor. At first, they looked meaningless. Years later, those tiny pieces would become one of the most fiercely debated clues in the entire trial. The investigation began that very night. For investigators, there was one obvious starting point: Santosh Kumar Singh. For nearly a year, Priyadarshini had repeatedly complained about him. They weren't searching for a suspect from scratch. They already had one. When Santosh was examined later that evening, investigators noticed something unusual. His right hand was badly swollen. An X-ray confirmed a fracture. Doctors believed it was the kind of injury that would be caused by striking something with considerable force. Was it a proof of murder? No. But it was something piece of a puzzle that was growing harder to ignore. The post-mortem revealed something else. Priyadarshini hadn't died without a fight. 19 separate injuries, 3 broken ribs. The evidence suggested she had resisted her attacker until the very end. Then investigators returned to one detail from the bedroom: those tiny plastic fragments. They seized Santosh's helmet. Its visor was missing. Investigators believed the broken visor and the fragments found beside Priyadarshini's body might fit together. It seemed like a small clue, but sometimes small clues hold entire cases together. Then the investigation took an unexpected turn. Santosh's father was a senior police officer. As public pressure grew, so did concern about whether the investigation could remain impartial. To remove those doubts, the case was transferred to the Central Bureau of Investigation. The CBI began almost from the beginning. Witnesses were questioned again. Evidence was reviewed again. Nothing was taken for granted. But one problem refused to go away. A neighbor named Kupuswamy claimed that he had seen Santosh near Priyadarshini's flat on the afternoon of the murder. Yet, his statement wasn't officially recorded until several days later. The defense argued that the delay made his testimony unreliable. The prosecution argued that a delay didn't change what he had witnessed. Years later, that single delay would become one of the biggest arguments in court. Then came the forensic evidence: blood samples, biological material, clothing. Everything was sent to Hyderabad for DNA analysis by Dr. Lalji Singh. When the report came back, it would completely change the direction of the trial. The trial stretched on for years. Dozens of witnesses testified. Forensic experts took the stand. Thousands of pages of evidence were examined. Then, just as the trial was nearing its end, something unusual happened. The judge called one final witness himself, Dr. Lalji Singh, the scientist who had conducted the DNA analysis. His report claimed that the biological evidence recovered during the investigation matched Santosh Kumar Singh. For the prosecution, this was the breakthrough. But the trial judge saw things differently. He rejected the DNA evidence. And with that decision, the entire case changed. The court went back to the remaining evidence. The repeated harassment, the written complaints, the sightings near Priyadarshini's home, the fractured hand, the damaged helmet. One by one, the judge examined every circumstance. Many of those facts were accepted. But the law doesn't ask whether someone is probably guilty. It asks whether guilt has been proved beyond reasonable doubt. To the trial judge, it hadn't. The benefit of doubt went to the accused. Santosh Kumar Singh was acquitted. For Priyadarshini Mattoo's family, it seemed like the case was over. It wasn't. The state appealed. Years later, the Delhi High Court reopened the entire record. This time, the judges asked a different question. What if this weren't isolated pieces of evidence? What if they were all parts of the same chain? The DNA, the repeated harassment, the sightings near the house, the fractured hand, the damaged helmet, the surrounding circumstances. Individually, none of them proved murder. Together, the High Court said they did. The acquittal was overturned. Santosh Kumar Singh was convicted under Section 302 and 376 of the IPC. Murder, rape. Then came the sentence. Death. In just one judgment, the case had gone from acquittal to conviction to the death penalty. But the legal battle still wasn't over. One final appeal reached the Supreme Court of India. The Supreme Court agreed with the High Court on one crucial point. The conviction would stand. Santosh Kumar Singh was guilty, but there was still one question left. Not whether he committed the crime, whether he deserved to die for it. Under Indian law, the death penalty reserved for only the rarest of rare cases. The Supreme Court held that this case did not cross that threshold. The question remained, sentence did not. The death penalty was commuted to life imprisonment, and with that, the legal journey finally came to an end. So, what does this case actually teach us? Not that courts always disagree. They don't. Not that judges simply see evidence differently. Sometimes they do. It teaches something far more important. The trial judge wasn't asking, did this probably happen? He was asking, has the prosecution removed every reasonable doubt? To him, the answer was no. 7 years later, the High Court asked a different question. Were those doubts really reasonable? After re-examining the DNA evidence, the witness testimony, and the complete chain of circumstances, the answer changed. The Supreme Court agreed with that conclusion. But it asked one final question, not about guilt, about punishment. Does every murder deserve the death penalty? Indian law says no. The death penalty is reserved for only the rarest of rare cases. The Supreme Court held that this case did not meet that standard. So while the conviction remained, the death sentence did not. 3 courts, 1 murder, the same evidence, but each court was answering a different legal question. That's why they reached different conclusions. That isn't a flaw in the justice system. It's exactly how it is supposed to work. Priyadarshini Mattoo never got to finish the law degree she had worked so hard to earn. But decades later, her case is still taught in law schools across India. Not because the facts changed, not because new witnesses appeared, not because the crime became any less horrific. The evidence never changed. The crime never changed. What changed was the legal question each court was trying to answer. And that's one of the most important principles in criminal law. Reasonable doubt doesn't exist to protect the guilt. It exists to protect the innocent. Sometimes. That means justice feels painfully slow. Sometimes. It even means a guilty person walks free, at least for a time. But without that same protection, an innocent person could lose their freedom forever. Justice isn't only about reaching the right answer. It's about proving that answer the right way. And sometimes that takes years.